Are you ready? Let's go. Ready?
Ready.
Yeah, ready when you are.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Holden Shepherd, Heidi Anderson, Jan Latter, Alison Patterson, welcome to my little show.
Why do you call it a little chat show?
Jan Nichols, Sam Eichen, Annabelle Smith, Donna Mazza, Rebecca Watson, Jonelle Fraser, Tracy Jacobson, Adam Wallace, Monique Mulligan, Matt Glover, Karen Young. I don't even know where I'm going with this. Welcome to my show. Now, before we meet our guest, Inspiring Kids Home Edition is now available. Now, this is the Inspiring Kids course that I've designed specifically for kids with autism, with ADHD, dyslexia, learning difficulties, anxiety, disability. It's designed for these kids to feel okay about who they are. This is that big self-acceptance thing that is so important, because there's nothing out there that kids can watch, like a program or anything like that, that says directly, hey, you are amazing just the way you are. You are fantastic and you are an amazing human being. That's what this program does. Plus, that's module 1, module 2, 3, and 4 goes through emotional regulation, so to manage those big emotions like anxiety or anger, and talk about encouraging empathy, resilience, and obviously creativity. So, Inspiring Kids Home Edition is now available, and I'm realizing even in homeschooling communities, there's a big gap, because you can call it the social and emotional learning for homeschooling communities. It is now available. So just go to my website down here and take a look around, and this will be, I think, play a big role and make a big difference to the lives of many, many, many kids. Welcome to another episode of Josh Langley Gets to Know. Now, in this little special mini-series, I'm talking to parenting experts because I want to know a little bit more about parenting. Obviously, I don't have kids myself, so why don't I talk to some parents and some parenting experts? So today, we're going to be talking to Lillian Reekie. She's a parenting strategist, and she runs the Parent Support Network, which sort of features the Nurtured Heart approach, which is a kind of... it's an approach. It's a whole course workshop thing that Lillian does. And we've just had the most amazing chat. Lillian has an incredible story about her second son and what got her into being a parenting mentor and using the Nurtured Heart approach. And it's absolutely fascinating. You're going to love this story. And there's a really, really emotional moment where Lillian talks about something that her son told her, her youngest son told her. So, yeah, so I think this is one of those interviews that you just need to just sit back and just take in, because it does get emotional, and I will give a trigger warning. There are concepts of suicide in here. So, but it needs to be said. It needs to be done. It needs to be spoken. So sit back, cup of coffee, glass of wine, or whatever, or if you're taking the dog for a walk and you're listening to this on your phone. Let's meet Lillian Reekie and understand a little bit more about the Nurtured Heart approach in parenting.
What are we gonna do with all this time?
Lillian, thank you so much for joining me on my show. How are you going this morning?
I am absolutely awesome. Thank you, Josh. Great to be here.
Look, it's great to have you. Now, I'm doing a little mini series of these episodes because I want to understand parenting more, because I'm not a parent. I don't have kids. So I thought, why don't I speak to the experts about parenting? And you have got such a fascinating story to tell, because you're a parenting strategist. Yes. And it's the story about how you came to be a parenting strategist. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And I'm going to ask you the question about why is mentoring so important and the benefits of that. But I want to go back right to the beginning, is what sort of led you to become a parenting strategist. And I believe it was the birth of your second son. Can you sort of start by talking about those early years?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a teacher by trade, and I had one son already, who is 7.5 years older than the second one, who came along in 1993. So he's now 28. He came into this world with a very big bang, literally, and he had a stress birth, and it was a really stressed birth. But he literally from the get-go was a different child to the first son that I'd had. So if he wasn't, feeding or sleeping, he was screaming. There was no quiet time. He was obviously unhappy, unsettled, and as a mother of only one, I just didn't know what I was up against. And anyway, by the time he was a young fellow, like 2 to 3 years old, it was very evident that he was a lot more active than the normal child. Being a teacher and knowing the children and the ones who are a little bit more active than others. Anyway, we lived in a largish country town called Shepparton, and there were 5 childcare centres in that town at that time, and he got a stint in every one of them, because basically he was asked to leave, or we felt compelled to take him out. Wow. Josh, at age 3.5, he was first diagnosed officially. So we started off with a doctor, we went to paediatrician, psychologists, psychiatrists, counsellors, and within about a 12-month period, he was diagnosed by as many people as we could see, but they all came up with a very similar consensus, which was ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and also childhood depression. And amongst that, mother was also diagnosed with childhood depression. With depression as well.
Yeah. Wow. So that's so did the diagnosis help you understand the situation better, or do you think it hindered it?
It didn't really. I guess when we read the criteria for example, for ODD, he did tick all of the boxes, but I'm not the type of person who, labels. Like I only use those terms so that people can relate, I guess. But he was very hyperactive. He was oppositional, he was defiant, he was aggressive, he was non-compliant, he was non-cooperative. So he was all of those things, unfortunately.
So what was it like as he went into primary school and high school? How did that go?
Wow. It was a fun journey. Not.
Okay. So paint a picture for us, if you don't mind.
Okay, so coming out of his 5th childcare centre, we made it just in time there for him to start school. So we enrolled him in, I guess, just a regular primary school. And we did feel it only fair to share with them the challenges that he had been going through. And so they put us with a teacher who they believed would be able to inverted commas, cope with him or, deal with him. She was an older lady, a very strict kind of teacher, but boy, they clashed big time. Yeah. And sadly, very sadly, he spent more time in time out than he did learning, in the classroom.
Yeah.
We were then very, very fortunate to find out about Steiner schooling. And there was a Steiner school, which I didn't even know about 40 minutes from our home. So we took him there to have a look, and he fell in love with it. He loved it. They were a lot more compassionate, a lot more understanding to his challenges. And in the meantime, we had started our journey because none of the conventional medical people really had answers for us, because all of them just wanted to medicate. And that was definitely not a path that we wanted to take. So the Steiner School was really, really good. And whilst it wasn't challenge free, it was a lot more enjoyable for him, for his teachers and for us. Unfortunately, though, the school closed down when he was in year 5. So he had 4 years there because of financial reasons. And then he had to go back into mainstream primary school. And that didn't go so well because he was so used to the kind of really mothering, nurturing sort of effect that he was getting at the Steiner School. We then moved to Queensland. So that was in Victoria. We then moved to Queensland. He went to yet another primary school. That didn't work out. We then put him into a private school. We thought, okay, the private school might be the way to go. Boy, that was a big mistake. In that school, that was a strict Anglican school. And at this stage, adolescence had hit.
Yeah.
So the challenges that we had between age 3 to 5 and then 13 to 15, 10x'd, like literally 10x'd.
Yeah.
By the time he was in year 8, so his second year in this private school, he was labelled, like everybody knew him. He had a school record, and some people might think, well, that's positive. He's got a school record, but no, it wasn't for something positive.
Yeah,
they
wasn't
had
the right thing. Yeah.
They had like a disciplinary system where they had yellow, green, blue, and then red cards where if, you know, they got disciplined, they got given these cards. So he had the school record by the start of year 8 for the most red cards in the whole school. And which wasn't positive. And I recall getting a call from the then very elderly female school principal, and I can still, like, we were sitting in the office and I can still almost recall her voice. Mr. and Mrs. Reekie, we do not tolerate children like your son at our school. And she basically gave us 2 options. She said, you can take him out voluntarily or we will expel him.
Oh,
so, of course, we took him out voluntarily. He then, there weren't a lot of other choices then other than the local, you know, kind of secondary school. Things went from bad to worse to horrible, just horrible. In the secondary school, because he felt a little more free, I guess, but he really played the system big time, started mixing with the wrong kids, doing the things he shouldn't have done, taking things he shouldn't have done. Just use your imagination. He did it all. He finally got expelled from that school at age 14 and a half.
That must have been really hard for you to see happen.
It was hard, Josh, because my husband and I are good people. We're good parents. We're kind. We're thoughtful. We're not parents who, you know, are harsh or, you know, discipline or physical. We're good people. We just didn't know what we didn't know. And we were parenting what I like to call now upside down, but we just didn't know it at the time. And when he was expelled, or basically the same scenario again, he actually got, well, he was suspended. He was suspended throughout his journey at that school so many times that he might as well not have been there, because he was either wagging school or he was suspended for wagging or for doing other things. So at the age of 14 and a half, we got this call from the school, of course, and, you know, same scenario again, like, you know, we just don't know what to do with this kid. And anyway, he got suspended, and we had just started mentoring with our own parenting coach. It was very, very early days. And on this day that we got the last phone call from the school, they basically phoned us, and we knew their number off by heart, and they phoned us to say, you know, Caleb's been in trouble again. However, he's taken off, and we just want to let you know he's taken off. So my husband and I, like, my husband was still at work, but, you know, we waited a while thinking he was going to come home. He did eventually come home, but I did all the upside down parenting, Josh. I yelled and screamed.
We're going to explore upside down parenting in a second.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And anyway, he took off, used some choice language. Once again, use your imagination. Took off, and I thought, oh, he'll come back. You know, he'll come back when he's calmed down or at dinner time. Anyway, he didn't come home at all. My husband ended up getting in the car about 8 o'clock at night to look for him. Couldn't find him. Went to a so-called friend's place that he thought might know where he was. This young fella said, look, I saw him a while ago and he wasn't in a very good state. And my husband kept driving around, eventually found him because there was a police car and policemen standing on the street corner, and there was our son in the gutter.
Oh, that must have been absolutely heartbreaking, and just it's the worst thing any parent really wants to go through, isn't it?
It was terrible, but you know what? In a lot of ways, it was a good day, and I can explain that later, because it was the start of our journey forward.
I'm just going to jump to, just for my viewers, what's your son Caleb like now? So I want to highlight the difference.
Huge difference. He is he still lives with us. He's 28. He and his partner both live with us, plus their beautiful dog. He's a beautiful, rounded, compassionate, loving, considerate young man. He brings me flowers. He recognises me for my greatness. He encourages me. He knows that I'm talking about him in all of my parenting work. I won't say he's comfortable with it, but he knows it's my passion and I need to. For me to be able to do my parenting and not have him wouldn't be as impacting. Like, I could still teach what I teach, but to be able to share our journey and to have parents identify and relate to me as a mother is really important. But he's vegan. He's almost hippie-ish, like, I guess. He loves the environment, camping, hiking. He's not great in crowds. He prefers being alone.
I'm not great in crowds either.
Yeah, but he's an amazing young man, and I'm so proud of him. He now owns his own business. So from that story of where the principal, when he got kicked out of school the last time, the principal actually said to him, this was a male principal, and my husband and I were in the office, and they said, well, if you're not coming back to school, what are you going to do? You've got no education, you've got a crappy attitude, etc. He said that in front of us. He said, you've got no hope of getting an apprenticeship. And with that, my son used some interesting language once again, swished everything off the principal's desk and said, you just watch me. And he went and enrolled himself in TAFE. He did his next year's education in TAFE over a few months. He enrolled himself in a pre-apprenticeship course. He actually got himself into an apprenticeship in plumbing, which he almost completed. It wasn't his fault that he didn't complete, because the owner of that business had a marriage breakdown and his business went to ruins. Anyway, he ended up going into partnership with my husband, his dad, who's an electrician. Keeping in mind, my husband hadn't worked as an electrician for 15 years, but he went back into the trade to help mentor our son. And they are now almost at the end of their 10th year together.
Wow, that's incredible. It shows such a turnaround. So I want to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned that you got a mentor, a parenting mentor, that you sought one out. What was the catalyst, and how did you find one?
Oh my gosh, how long is this interview?
Okay, well, quickly. So how did you find that mentor? Obviously, you got to the point you had exhausted every other opportunity. You're at wit's end. How did you find the mentor?
Story. It's the best story, Josh. So my son had got to the point where he knew he needed help, even though he kind of couldn't help his behaviour. Like, he knew he needed help and he wanted help. So a friend of ours actually recommended this particular counselling service, and we went there, and quite transparently, I'm not sure that it helped very much, but we had to go in every day for 2 weeks. Well, my husband took him in this day, and in the waiting room was the old VHS videos with the white spine, and down the spine of that video said how to handle the revolting child. And my husband was intrigued, so he put it in the video player, the old VHS, and watched it. And when he finished watching it, he was in tears. He was in tears, and he apologized to my son on the way home. They were both in tears. And then he came home and told me, you've got to watch this. I'd literally just had an operation. I had both of my feet in plaster. No, that's another story, but I was not, really with it. Yeah. But he said, Lillian, you've got to come in tomorrow and watch this. I went in my wheelchair and two feet in plaster and watched it. And we went, oh my gosh, who is this? You could tell it was like a homemade video, like somebody had recorded a live, seminar. Oh, yeah. And you could tell it was old because of the way people were dressed. And at the counselling place, nobody knew. They said, I don't know, it's just been on the shelf forever. We don't know where it came from. And whoever videoed it didn't start it at the start, because there was no introduction. There was no name. It was just this guy was talking in front of an audience in a brown suit and, an older guy. And we just said to these people, we are desperate to find out more about this. We need to find out more about this. This is our answer. So about a week or so later, we get a phone call from the States. Hi, my name's Frank, and I believe you need me.
Whoa.
And it was the guy on the video.
So how did he know that? What was the story there?
We don't even know. Somebody told somebody who knew somebody who linked to him, and he found out. And he was the most eccentric guy ever. But he taught us about language. So my third book, I've written 6 books. So my third book, The Revolting Child, A Blessing in Disguise, is about, the second part of it is about our journey of meeting him. And he taught us about language. He taught us about how important words are, and, you know, how powerful what we say and what we energize is. And then we mentored with him for nearly 2 years. So he mentored with my husband and I, and also with my son. And Caleb thought he was a really cool old dude, you know, because he really got down to his level and related to him. But on that day that I said we found him in the drunken stupor in the gutter, we had just started coaching with Frank. But unfortunately, earlier that day, my teaching went out the window, because I still did all the yelling, nagging and threatening and, you know, you're grounded and all of that. But whilst my son, it took him 2 days to sober up. That's how bad things were. So whilst he was in that sort of situation, we called Frank in the States and we said, this has happened, please help us, what do we do? So he told us, gave us some tips, and we actually responded in a way that would not be the normal way we would respond. So as he was coming out of that stupor, you know, we were just there. We were there to love him unconditionally, to be his biggest supporters and fans. We never asked him what he did, why he did it, what he took. We were just there to love him and tell him everything was okay. And as he came out of that, he kind of realized, I should be in the biggest trouble ever, you know, I should, and he realized that something had changed. And from that moment, our relationship started to change. You know, he started to respond to us differently, and we to him, and it made a huge, huge difference. And if we've got time later, I'll tell the story of what happened when I did that book launch, which is really why I'm so passionate about my parenting.
So this leads me into the upside down parenting. What is it?
Okay, good question. So from that mentoring we did with Frank, and keep in mind, you know, this was a few years ago because he's now 28. 2013, I was introduced to something called the Nurtured Heart approach. As a matter of fact, I was at like a networking event for adolescent, you know, counsellors and psychologists and things, and youth workers. And I was having a chat to this young female psychologist, and she said, "Oh, what do you do, Lillian?" And I kind of explained what I did, and she said, "Oh, tell me more about that." And she goes, "Oh, I've just heard about that." And I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean you've just heard about that?" She goes, "Isn't that the Nurtured Heart approach?" And I'm like, "No, it's the Lillian Reekie approach." And she goes, "Oh, it really sounds like the Nurtured Heart approach." So I went home, as one does, and Googled, and spent about 4 hours online Googling, watching, listening to stuff about the Nurtured Heart approach. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so in alignment. Now, keep in mind, this is probably 4 or 5 years after we'd stopped mentoring with Frank.
Yeah.
This is so in alignment with what Frank taught us. And I became a groupie, you know, like I just wanted to know more and more about it. So cut a long story short, it wasn't even in Australia. It was just in Australia, but they hadn't started teaching it yet. I found out that there was a psychologist in Australia who was about to launch it and start teaching about it. So this psychologist that I'd spoken to knew the other guy, the other psychologist. And as it worked out, he lived in the same town as me.
Oh,
so
wow.
like he could have been anywhere, right?
Wow.
I was thinking he could be Melbourne, it could be Sydney, it could be Brisbane, but no, he was on the Gold Coast. And so I started going to his classes and basically just went to every class I could go to. And then the founder, Howard Glasser, came out in 2014. Sorry, it's a long way around telling you about what upside down parenting is.
Yeah.
So in the Nurtured Heart approach, the whole philosophy is around upside down parenting, because we as parents, and it's actually it's not even just parenting, it's actually in relationships in general, but we're talking parenting today. So as parents, particularly parents like myself, of the more challenging and intense children, we give most of our energy, connection, relationship to the kids when they're doing the wrong thing. So that's when we come to life. Like we have this analogy of we are our children's favorite toy. So our children are always seeking our relationship, our connection. That's what all humans want, right? But particularly kids, we want connection, we want relationship. And kids actually get to learn inadvertently, even with the best intentions, even from the best parents, even with the most love in our hearts, that we give the best, the juiciest, the most connected relationship when they're doing the wrong thing, because that's when we come to life. If the kid's playing nice and quietly, we might say, good job, well done, or thank you, which we call junk food praise. It's like, gives a little bit of nourishment, but not much. But as soon as that child breaks the rule, starts fighting with their sibling, is disrespectful or something, we come to life. That's when the energy comes out.
And that's when they've got your attention. And that's
why, exactly. And that's why it's upside down, because we should be. And what we teach in the Nurtured Heart approach is to give that beautiful connected relationship when they're doing the right thing, or even taking baby steps towards doing the right thing. So we need to turn our energy. It's all about energy. So we need to turn our energy back the right way up.
That makes a lot of sense, because my husband used to work in the disability sector, and he was talking about traditionally all they want is to get your attention, and if that means doing bad things, they've got your attention. And so he's got this thing called interrupt and redirect. So when someone's doing something bad, interrupt that, redirect to something else that's more positive as another thing. So, but you're right, it is that reframing, changing the energy of that situation. So how does that look in a practical way for parenting?
Absolutely. So in the Nurtured Heart approach, and why I love it is because it has nice structure. And a lot of parents, particularly parents who are stressed, who are, already, their cup is already overfull with things to worry about, they need simple structure. So the Nurtured Heart approach has three beautiful, what we call a stand. And you know what it means when you stand for something, you really believe in it. It's something that you want to give everything to. So stand one is absolutely no, which means I'm not going to give my energy, my attention, my connection, my relationship to something I don't want to grow, to something that's negative. Now, if you have to step in because there's something dangerous happening, or they're hurting themselves or someone else, of course you have to step in, but otherwise you don't give it attention or energy or connection or relationship. Now, the beauty of it is there are three stands and they all work together. So people sometimes say, but isn't that ignoring? No, it's not ignoring, because you've got to understand the other two steps. So you don't give attention to that energy. It's a little bit like, if you fill your watering can with nice water, and you put, the liquid nutrients into it, and you go out to water the garden, you're not going to pour that beautiful nutrient-rich water on the weeds, because you don't want to grow the weeds. So we don't want to grow the bad behavior. But here's where the beauty comes in. The very second the child either stops that behavior or takes even a baby step towards a more positive behavior, then you come in and recognize them. Josh, I can see you're upset, but I really love how you're starting to calm yourself down. That really shows me that you've got great self-control, and that you're listening, and that you really do want to be cooperative. And I really do appreciate that. Thanks so much, Josh, for really, taking the time to calm yourself down now. So we're giving you positive reinforcement for, even if you were yelling like crazy a minute ago, but you're starting to calm down, we're going to recognize you for taking the baby steps towards calming down. And you've got much more of a chance of that kid stopping or, continuing to slow down that tantrum or whatever's going on. And we use stand two to look for every opportunity to to recognize the child. And in the nurtured heart approach, we have different recognition techniques that we teach. That's why it takes many weeks to teach this, because it's kind of like learning another language.
I can imagine it would be, yeah.
Yeah, I can't teach you to speak German in one session. It's going to take, weeks and weeks and weeks of practice, and then more weeks of practice. So we take our courses. The one I'm currently doing is 9 weeks, but we've taken as long as 20 weeks, depending on, the group and what's happening. So that's stand 2. And that's probably the most important stand, because that's really about giving positive energy to the children, so that they then realize that, hey, I'm not getting that energy when I'm doing the wrong thing. When I'm doing the wrong thing, I'm getting very little, if not any, an energy or connection. But when I behave in this way, or start to behave in this way, I really like that feeling. I really like that really juicy recognition I'm getting, even if it's unconscious thought. And then stand 3 is really important as well. So that's absolute clarity. So it's having clarity around your rules and around your consequences, so that the kids know what the rules and consequences are. So it's a little bit like, we use a lot of analogies in this approach. It's a little bit like on the basketball court, everybody knows a toe over the line's a toe over the line, right? That the lines are there and they're the boundaries. So you need to make sure your boundaries are clear with your kids and they know what they are, and make that clear. But we don't punish, we don't, go to your room, time out, take things away. We just ask the kids to reset. And people think, well, this is pretty simple, just to get them to reset, but it actually helps the children to self-regulate. So if you were doing something inappropriate, I would say, Josh, I need you to reset. And we've already taught you what reset is. And that could just mean, taking a few deep breaths, grounding yourself, whatever it is you need to do to get back into that space. For little kids, we teach them, pretend you're blowing out a candle. You might need to blow out 3 or 4 candles, because if you say take deep breaths to a little kid, they might not understand what that is, but they know how to blow out candles. And eventually, through both modeling this, and you model it yourself. So as I was going to say,
that's a really integral thing, isn't it? Because kids model. If you're saying one thing and doing another, they're going to pick that up.
Absolutely. And look, even if I'm stressed as a parent and you're mucking up, I'm going to go, okay, Josh, mum just needs to reset for a minute. Take a few deep breaths. Okay, and now I can come back. So it actually teaches the kids to eventually to self-regulate. And they will even eventually say, oh, mum, I need to reset, and they know, once again, that once they've reset, they're back in the game. So it's a little bit like another analogy we use, which is the video game theory. So in video games, why do you think kids love video games so much?
Because they can achieve have fun, got goals to achieve and things like that, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. And what happens when a kid loses a life or gets kicked out of the game or something? What can happen really easily? They can get back in the game. Yeah. So they can reset and get back in again. So it's a little bit like a video game. You can muck up, but you know that you can reset and get back in the game again. So we want kids to get back in the game quickly. So, once again, once they're reset, we then go back into stand 2 and say, wow, Josh, I love how you really, you really settled yourself down. You're not angry anymore. You're looking at me. You're ready to talk to me in a nice voice. And that just shows me, you're being really respectful in this moment, and I really appreciate it. So you've come out of the reset, and now you're back in the game again. There's no more punishment. There's no going to your room. There's no taking your phone away. And kids actually just get to eventually realize that we all muck up. Adults muck up. Kids muck up. And that at times we just have to reset. And of course, if there's something a little bit more serious, then of course, there are consequences. We need to talk about the consequences, but not in the moment. See, most parents teach the rules when the rules have been broken, but the right time to teach the rules is when they're being followed.
Okay, I like that. So what's the 4th one?
No, there's 3 stands. That's
just 3 stands. Okay, no 4. Okay. I think that's a And that is a life-changing thing, isn't it, for both the parent and the child?
It is, absolutely. And once parents learn this, it's actually like people come to my courses and go, oh, it's not a parenting course, Lillian. It's really like personal development. It's really like, and people actually tell me that this has not only changed their relationships with their kids, but with their partner, with their, close family and friends, and even with themselves. Like it actually changes them as a person.
Wow. I see the benefits of it just flowing, because it is changing the energy that you put out, isn't it? That's what you were saying. It's like, instead of reacting to all the negative and then the child getting, like, all the child wants is attention and love. Exactly. And nurture, and they will get it whichever way they know how.
Exactly.
And that's knowing that, isn't it?
And most kids, particularly like our son, they learn at a very, very young age where our energy is. When we come to life is when they break the rules or muck up. And you'll hear a lot of these kids say, oh, I don't mean to do it, I just don't know how not to. And then you hear them say, oh, well, I might as well keep mucking up because, there's no benefit to not, you know what I mean? They don't get the recognition when they're not mucking up. So I might as well muck up. And that's when, if I want mum to come to life, if I want my toy to, turn the switch on and come to life, well, muck up. When I'm playing quietly, I don't get any recognition. I don't get any relationship. But as soon as I muck up, then the toy comes to life.
Wow. Yeah. That's a really interesting way of looking at it, especially with, do you find that parents are a lot more distracted these days than they would have been, say, 20 years ago?
I think so. I mean, life can be stressful and is stressful, particularly in our day and age now, especially over the last 18 months or so. There are a lot of extra stresses on parents, but, most families today, both parents are working, trying to make a living. Kids, there are more demands on kids at school. There are more demands on kids to be successful and to do well at school. There's a lot of pressure, all round. And I mean, even with social media, like there's just so much, there's so many distractions, I guess, from just being a family. We made a commitment in our family. I'm probably the one that's addicted to my phone more than anybody in the family, but we 5 adults live in this house, and we all sit down at the dinner table together every night. We talk, we ask each other about our days, we laugh, we tell jokes, we sit at the dinner table for a good hour and
I love that.
Spend
that's great.
Yeah, and that's that's as adults. So we're kind of making up for stuff that we didn't know when the kids were younger, because unfortunately, my older son missed out on a lot as well because of his younger brother.
Oh, because it would have taken the attention and focus. Yeah,
well, he took all the focus and all the attention. And as a matter of fact, in this book, and I'm sure I can share it because it's in the book, but my oldest son was a very quiet, introverted.
Yeah.
Would play for hours with his Lego, reading. He was that sort of kid. But and he was 7.5 when his brother came along. So by the time he was 10, our house was total chaos. And my eldest son is now a naturopath, herbalist and nutritionist. He chose that career because of our journey with our son. But when he was a young teen, Josh, and this is why, I feel like we as parents, we have to be very mindful of our relationships with all of our children, because sometimes when the very challenging kid takes up a lot of our time, energy, attention and relationship, the other kid or kids don't get the attention they really deserve or the recognition they deserve. When I went to write this book, so this was written in 2009, and my then younger son was just short of 16. My elder son was about 22. And I actually got all of their permission to write this book, because this book is kind of like a tell-all story of right from my pregnancy right through until that present day, which was just before Caleb was 16. And they were a bit unsure about what I was going to write, but they all gave my permission. And I said, look, I really want you all to share. So my youngest son shared, and his part was so amazing. I made it the forward in the book.
Oh,
I was
okay.
blown away. I didn't even know he could write that well. I did not edit it. There might be a couple of grammatical things. I did not edit it. It's as it was. And my husband wrote a piece and my eldest son wrote a piece. And when I read it, I was shocked.
Wow.
I was totally shocked because at age 13, my, oh boy.
Yeah, we can skip this if you want, Lillian.
It's okay, because I think it's really important for people to, you know, my eldest son attempted to take his life at 13. He got up in a tree, put a noose around his neck, and he said, I wasn't sure why I didn't go through with it, but he literally, you know, had the noose around his neck, holding onto the tree, and something in him just, you know, he thought of me and his dad and Andrew's his stepdad, but he thought of us and he didn't do it. And I had no idea, not for 10 years later, you know, when he shared in this book.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's stuff like that that makes me just so much more passionate, because it's not only, you know, the challenging kids that we have to worry about, it's, you know, or give that relationship too, because when I look back with a lot of regret, but I've forgiven myself, you know, he missed out on so much in his childhood because of the challenges that we had with his brother. And it was all about his brother. You know, we could never afford anything else because we were ever spending everything on this therapy and that therapy. We could never go on a holiday because it was too hard with his brother. We could never, you know, have a family outing because it was too hard with his brother. We even moved interstate so that our close friends and families didn't know how hard things were.
Wow.
You know, and it was a tough time. But he's now become a naturopath and he works with me. He has such a passion now because he knows what our family went through. So he wants to help other families. So in my parenting courses, he comes in and talks about not only physical health, but also emotional health and wellness as well, which is really important.
So important, yeah.
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 Sorry about that. I still get I didn't
No,
bring myself a glass.
No, that I kind of like that authenticity, that genuineness, and because that's what storytelling's about, and especially in such heartfelt stories like that, Lillian. So thank you. So I was going to ask you, as a ex-school teacher, do you reckon that the education system maybe needs to have a look at this kind of upside down way of looking at things?
Oh, absolutely. I've got, you know, Sharon.
Yes.
Auntie Sharon. Well, she's doing my current course, and she's doing it from the perspective of a parent and an educator. And she's the first one to admit, and when I look back to my teaching days, you know, I was upside down as well. And I think, you know, a lot of teachers, it's very similar to parenting. Okay, we've got 20, 25 plus kids to care for, and it's the intense and challenging ones that get most of our energy and attention and connection and relationship. And the good kids are kind of like, phew, thank goodness they're getting on with their work quietly. Once again, they might get a thank you, good job, well done, but that is junk food praise. So educators need this equally, if not more than parents need it, because, and in the States where the Nurtured Heart approach came from or started almost 30 years ago, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of schools utilising the Nurtured Heart approach. And schools in the toughest areas with the toughest kids have got the most amazing results, because most of those kids who are mucking up, and we don't always know their circumstances, right? Particularly, we don't always know their home lives. We don't know what happened to them before they came to school. We don't know if they got yelled at or screamed at, or even worse. We don't know what's going on in their lives, but that they are also seeking relationship. And they learn to seek it up, once again, upside down. You know, they learn to seek it upside down. So we need to, you know, particularly for those intense and challenging kids in the classroom, we need to go stand to big time. We need to find every opportunity we can to recognise them for the very smallest of steps that they take. And they will start to then go, oh, wow, you know, I'm getting recognised for this, and it feels And then they realize when I muck up, oh, I'm not getting that attention and energy that I used to get. What's going on? Things are switching, things are changing. And eventually they start to realize that they get the juiciest of relationship when they're behaving in a certain way.
Yep. And I can see how that would be life-changing for everyone all involved. So now, Lillian, what lights you up?
Oh, wow. Other than this work, my family.
Yeah.
My family means so much to me. I have the most amazing, I have the most incredible husband. We've been married for over 30 years. He's incredible. He supports my work. You know, even when I've been doing this work and it hasn't really paid the bills, so to speak, it's been more of a hobby business. He knows this is my passion. He knows, you know, that I make a difference. He sees the difference I make. So, you know, my family light me up. This work really lights me up when I have somebody who literally says to me, Lillian, you have saved my family. You have changed my life. I am a different person because of you. You know, that, how could it not light you up? You know,
I love that.
But I've got lots of other things I love too. Yeah.
So if people want to find out more about the Nurtured Heart approach and the work you're doing, where can they go?
I'm pretty active on Facebook. You can see my phone number up there. You can also see my parentsupportnetwork.com.au, which is my page. So on that page, it's not so much a website, it's more of a landing page. But on that page, people can watch 2 of my masterclasses. So I did 2 masterclasses in October, a 60-minute one and a 90-minute one, and they're both different. A little bit of similarity, but otherwise different. You can also download this book, which is I've written 6 books. I have them here just in case. So there's my 6 books.
Yep.
Written 6 books, but my favorite book, which is The Revolting Child, A Blessing in Disguise, they can download for free also at that link.
Okay, this is on this is the Parenting Support Network.
parentsupportnetwork.com.au.
Okay, I'll put that underneath there. Yep.
I also have a Facebook page, Parent Support Network as well.
Okay, people can
or they can just contact me on Messenger, on Facebook. All my phone numbers there. I'm even happy for a phone call.
Okay, beautiful. I love that. Look, Lillian, thank you so much for joining me. I think you may have just helped a few families out there with some opportunities. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
What are we gonna do with all this time?